Hey everybody, welcome to EduMatch. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today we have an awesome panel for you on teacher engagement. Super excited. So if you have not already done so, then you might want to sign up on edumatch.org. So just go to edumatch.org just go to edumatch.org and you'll see on the top right-hand side that there's a button that says sign up. So just go ahead and sign up. And then we will add you to our awesome table of EduMatchers. We are also shortly going to be bringing back the EduMatch Person of the Day. So there's going to be a wait. I'm not going to lie to you. There's going to be a wait. But in the meantime, as we tag more people and they become matches for you, then we will, then you'll go ahead and get some great tags of some great potential collaborators or connections. So super excited about that. So tonight we are talking about teacher engagement. Very timely topic as we kick the school year back off. So we're going to go through, do some panel introductions. We will save our amazing moderator, Mandy, for last, but we're going to kick things off first with Leslie. So if you could please jump in and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Leslie Fagan. I am an instructional technology coach in Griffin, Georgia. I have the pleasure of working with our phenomenal secondary school teachers on effective tech integration. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight with this wonderful group of educators.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you back. Always great to talk with the Faganator. Awesomeness. All right, next up we have Leah.
Hey, Sarah. My name is Leah Kurtz, and I am an instructional technology coach for a high school just north of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm very excited to be here. I'm their instructional technology coach and webmaster and social media manager and about 17 other different hats. Very excited to be here and just get a chance to talk to you guys. I'm very passionate about this subject too.
All right, it's awesome to have you back. So thank you for being here, Leah. Great to see you. All right, next up we have Kenny.
Hey everybody, my name is Kenny McKee. I'm a high school literacy coach in Asheville, North Carolina, where I serve 3 different high schools.
Sweet, great to have you here, Kenny. Thank you so much for joining us. Next up we have another Georgian. So we have Holly.
Hey guys, I'm Holly Sisk, and I am right outside of Savannah, Georgia. And I am the Instructional Resource Director for the College of Education for Georgia Southern University. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight. Today is my first time on Tweet and Talk.
Welcome to Tweet and Talk. We are so glad to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us. And next up, I believe, Casey, it's also your first time on Tweet and Talk?
It is. Yeah, my name is Kenan. I am a 3rd grade educator in Frederick, Maryland. This is my 9th year teaching. Yeah, so not too far from Baltimore. And I will be opening up a brand new STEAM Arts Integrated School next year. And I definitely have a passion for instructional technology and student engagement. I also am the author of the blog Fair Winds Teaching.
Awesomeness. And thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on your new school that you're going to open up. And we definitely look forward to hearing more about that. So awesomeness. All right. So without any further ado, let's kick things over to our amazing moderator, Mandy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mandy Froehlich, and I am the Director of Innovation and Technology for a school district in Wisconsin. And I'm also the author of The Fire Within, Lessons from Defeat That Have Ignited a Passion for Learning, longest title ever. And then also the upcoming book based on my graphic for The Hierarchy of Needs for Innovation and Divergent Thinking, which is loosely called The Divergent Teacher, will be coming out in November as well. And pieces of that book discuss teacher engagement or disengagement a little bit. So it's something that I am also passionate about and excited to talk about tonight. Okay, so we'll get started, right? Okay. So when I talk about teacher engagement, a lot of people think that it's in regards to how engaged people are in their professional learning, but that's not entirely what I mean, even though that is definitely a piece of that. Teacher engagement is actually the level of connection that educators and that administrators as well, so all educators, feel that they still have to education in general. And so I I became interested in this when, and about 5 years in, I decided I had wanted to leave teaching. Like, I was almost one of the statistics. And right now, they say roughly 40% of teachers in the first 5 years leave the teaching profession. That doesn't count the teachers who just become disengaged and have to stay in teaching because of reasons like I had, where I couldn't afford to actually leave my job. And so these people have kind of forgotten why they started teaching to begin with, which is where I was. So my question for you, my very first question is, have you worked with these kinds of teachers, and how did you know they were disengaged?
I'll jump in first. I've worked with those kinds of teachers. I don't think I ever got to the point where I was totally disengaged. I did consider, I think, not until year 10. At the first day of school, year 10, I had decided that I would not come back after Christmas because I was just done. And in Georgia, you're vested in the teacher retirement system with the 10th year. And my 10th year, oddly enough, is in the middle of the year because I started in January back in 2004. But to me, the disengaged teachers were the ones in my building who were out of the building before the final bell had even rung. They had already packed up everything and they were out the door, and they didn't, stay for any extracurricular activities. They were the ones who isolated themselves from everybody. They didn't eat lunch in the faculty dining room. They sat alone during faculty meetings, and they just had this air of, I'm done and I really don't care about what's going on here. So I've definitely seen those teachers, and I don't think I ever got to that point. Actually, I know I didn't, because I was way too involved in the extracurriculars. I think I was the advisor for about 5 different things throughout the 7 years that I taught high school. So I could not get disengaged, but I've seen them, and it's sad because our students deserve better, and we as educators deserve to have a job that we like and we're passionate about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I definitely agree with all of that. I also see it in the students. I interact with a lot of students outside of my classroom in the hallways, and I have volunteers in my room. Even though I teach 3rd grade, I have 4th and 5th graders come in, and I talk to them and I communicate with them, and you can feel it from them if one of their teachers isn't, putting in the effort to build a relationship with them, or you hear the students talk about how they sometimes feel like they're not heard or respected. And I feel like as a teacher, because a teacher tired is a thing, it's like you can get worn out, and the profession can take a lot out of you. But when we start treating our students with not respect, or with not as a partnership in the classroom, you can start to see it within the students, which then you can start to see that they're not engaged in the learning and getting them fully into the lessons that they're teaching. So definitely communicating with the students and seeing how everything's going is important.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on, especially as a coach, I see that happen when teachers become resistant to exploring new ideas, or they're not really problem solving anymore. Even engaged teachers might, blow off steam with their colleagues, but usually that's followed up by ideas of how can I change things, and it just kind of stops. And it's really interesting to me as a coach, because I can see teachers who are in that mode, because even with me, they're not talking about teaching. They're like trying to avoid the topic of teaching when we see each other in the hallway or anywhere else in the school.
Yeah, I think the disengaged teachers that, I find there's that loss of joy. They're the ones who kind of just suck the energy out of you, if you see them at all. And a lot of them you don't ever see. They don't come out of their room. Like Kitty said, they don't talk about teaching. If you see them at all, there's no building up. There is no problem solving. There is they've shut down. There's definitely just a loss of joy. And that's It's difficult. Teaching is hard. We know that, you know, it's the hardest. I would venture to say it's one of the hardest professions you can be in. It takes a lot out of you. And when you've disengaged, it's even harder. And when you run into the disengaged teacher, it starts to suck the joy out of so many people around them too.
Absolutely. And I think a few of you made a really good point as you were kind of speaking about, you know, there's not really engaged and disengaged. There's kind of a continuum of that, right? And we can see it in the way you can almost place teachers, especially if you're an instructional coach. And if you're an instructional coach, you get to see that firsthand because you're like the middleman between teachers and administration. And you work so closely with the teachers that you know, you get to see that, like I said, firsthand. And Kenny made a really good point, is that there's complaining. And I think all of us do it at some point. All of us complain about some things that we have going on. But the difference is if you're looking for solutions or if you're doing it just to complain. Those are two, you know, entirely different ends of the spectrum. And so, yeah, but it is kind of a continuum. And one thing I hit on my blog is that like we all want to be happy in our roles and in our jobs, but the opposite of happiness is not anger or frustration or sadness. It's actually apathy, because when we stop caring, that's the issue. So that's all really, really good points. And we kind of touched on this next question. How do disengaged teachers affect the climate and culture of the building?
Well, I'll start. I see that teaching is something that is worthy of study itself, but a lot of times disengaged teachers act as if it's not. So what will happen is they either act like teaching is not that important of a job or a role, or they put out the message that once you've become a teacher, you really don't need to grow anymore because you went to college and you did everything you had to do, right? So I see it happen those two ways. But the biggest issue I see with culture is that it can sometimes infect all the teachers that are really engaged, and they see this kind of lack of engagement from someone else. And depending on the school, of course, you know, there may be no consequence for folks that are disengaged. And in some ways, they may even see it as a reward, depending on whatever the culture of that school works like.
Yeah, I absolutely agree too. And I think that I can tell when someone's disengaged because I'll come up with this really exciting idea and I'll start to run it by some of my teammates or someone in my school or even someone outside of my school building, and I'll be lighting up and I'm like, wouldn't this be cool? And then you have that teacher that's like, no, I can't, I wouldn't do that with my kids. That wouldn't work with my kids. My kids wouldn't be able to handle it. It's all of these excuses on why this activity or this thing wouldn't work for their classroom, not, oh, I like that. My kids are a little bit different, so I'm going to change it to make it work for me, but it's just, no, it's not. And then it almost puts out my fire a little bit. So I try to tend to not be around people like that. I used to always want to eat in the faculty lounge, and my school became very toxic. And the people that I ate lunch with, I realized that it would be better for me to eat alone in my room and to, you know, collect my thoughts and to plan than it was for me to eat in the lounge. And I used to think the opposite, like, oh, I've got to go have some, you know, adult contact and with these students all day. But it ended up being the opposite. But if I had a room full of teachers that were engaged, I would, you know, we would all light each other and it would sort of work out. But the second someone snuffs your fire, it sort of, it doesn't feel good very often.
I think that when teachers are disengaged, it can affect the students, obviously, in a negative way, because, you know, learning goes on in the classroom, but not all learning is about the sharing of the content. The engaged teacher is the teacher that, you know, the students feel comfortable enough coming to their classroom after school to ask questions or to, you know, talk about their personal lives. You know, they invite you to ball games and whatnot. Disengaged teachers, the students are like, who cares about me? Because if we think about all the students that we've ever come in contact with who don't have caring adults outside of the school, they come to the school to get that. And when they don't get it from, it can be a small population in the school of disengaged teachers, or the vast majority are disengaged. That affects our students in a negative way. And we go to school every day because we're supposed to be there for the students. If we're not there, then why are the students there? So we really have to figure out a way to get those disengaged teachers to get engaged, because otherwise, what learning is going to happen, and what are we doing to prepare our students? What reason do our students have to come to school? If we don't want to be there, then why do our students want to be there?
Yeah, Leslie, I totally agree. I was recently at a school where I noticed a lot of disengaged teachers, and I started to see the trend of they felt they weren't supported from the administration. So I really kind of feel like it comes top down, and like you said, ultimately it impacts our students. So our teachers weren't encouraged and empowered by our administration, which kind of led to a lot of disengagement. And then it ultimately did affect our students. I mean, I had, 14, 15, 16-year-old students coming to me saying, why doesn't our teacher do things like Miss So-and-so does down the hall? And it was just because she had checked out. She was done. So I think the difference is, a lot of times when we lead by example and show that engagement, it kind of helps and it inspires those teachers then to, try new things and embrace that change, and then try to encourage those students in their classroom.
Yeah, and I think that hitting on the administrator thing, I found it to be a little bit cyclical. I talk about this a lot, and just from the administrator standpoint, what I've seen is that, for example, usually it's like personalized professional development, right? The administrator will jump into that and they will try to implement something like that, but that takes a lot of teacher autonomy, right? They have to want it. And so sometimes the disengaged teachers then don't participate as they should. And then the administrator's like, oh, why aren't they doing this? I'm trying to give them personalized professional development. It's what they wanted. So I'm going to put some compliance measures on them in order to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, which caps off the teachers who were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And then it's, then they get angry, and it's like cyclical in nature. It kind of goes around, and one option to try to break that cycle would instead be to continue allowing the personalized professional development, for example, but giving those disengaged teachers a few different things: more support, so that they feel like they can be a part of this process, like we would give our students more support. We wouldn't just, we shouldn't just hammer them with more compliance measures. But also having those difficult conversations with them. Sometimes I feel like compliance measures are put on as a way to get around having difficult conversations with people instead of just having them. So yeah, I agree. I think that the disengagement can cause that kind of cycle to begin within administration and teachers. Which goes a little bit into question 4. So some people think that disengaged teachers, I've actually heard keynote speakers say this. Some people think that disengaged teachers should leave the profession, but I disagree with that. I think that we all got into teaching for a reason, and there are multiple reasons why we become disengaged. So what can we do to support teachers who have forgotten why they teach in the first place?
I think that's really the struggle. I refer to disengagement as a whole as losing your sparkle. And I think it happens in every profession. To hold it to just teaching is unrealistic. It's, and I think we tend to generalize that, it's only in teaching. Well, people become disenchanted in every profession. That's reality. You get farther, 5, 10 years down the road, and you go, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be, or, things have gone horribly awry. I think it happens everywhere. but in teaching, it's so much more. It's so much more. It's a huge deal because we're dealing with children's lives, you know. So losing your sparkle here, it's a huge, huge deal. And I think really what it comes down to is really having that support, not just from administration, but from other teachers and really from students themselves. In the last school that I was in the classroom, I'll never forget, there was, during Teacher Appreciation Week, kids every single year, and it was a high school, made a point of being there before school. And it was like they held a pep rally for teachers. They met us in the parking lot. They had signs and they cheered us into the building. And it renewed us, you know, even the ones who are a little snarky and definitely a little disengaged. You can't help but be, you know, to bring a little of your sparkle back when you see that, when you see a kid who got up at 7 o'clock to make sure that you were encouraged for that day. You know, I think that that's part of it, is really taking the time to make sure that we're encouraging each other. And then, but I think you're right, Manny, when you're talking about it, it really has to come from the top down, and it has to be a mindset and a change in the culture overall, that this is not going to be something we're going to find as acceptable, and seeking out the teachers that we know are disengaged and working with them to try to bring them back.
I also want to jump in and say there's so much power in asking a question. I've made so many, you know, in my head, these misconceptions about people, about why they do things. And, you know, sometimes I've seen teachers be disengaged, and I find out, you know, later on, well, okay, they're brand new parents. Something is a little more important to them right now, or they're going through a financial stress. You know, it could be anything. So, you know, as a colleague, as a coach, as an administrator, I think it's important that we don't just always just run with our assumptions, but we ask some questions first, because sometimes there could be some personal things that are getting in the way, and oftentimes that is true.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was actually one of those teachers. I was about 14 years in, and I was looking for a way out. But you know, at that point, you're really invested. But I didn't care, and I wanted to enjoy going to my job every day. And I finally realized I was the media specialist at the school, and I had this sign on my door that said, "Let me drop everything and solve your problems," because it was like this revolving door of teachers coming in just to, you know, complain about everything and not a lot of solutions. And I felt like I needed to be the avenue for them to vent. But it was bringing me down by the end of the day, every day. And I finally, you know, I kind of took matters into my own hands. I didn't really seek the support so much in the building that I was in or in the school district I was in. I discovered this enormous, amazing family on Twitter. My PLN, I honestly can say Twitter saved my career and kept me in education. And I recently, a few months ago, saw a video from Will Smith talking about be around those people who fan your flames. Because those are the people who encourage you and inspire you and nourish you. And I have to say, you know, my immediate family has been awesome. I actually decided last year to take a year off and take a break and find my why and get back to why I really want to do this, and kind of learn, take that time to grow and actually be mentored by some amazing people. And it was kind of humbling to do at 14 years into a career, to take that jump and admit, I would say, defeat at the time. But through the process, I have grown leaps and bounds and passionate more than ever. And so that's kind of my phrase now is, you know, who fans your flames? Who are the people that nourish and inspire you? If they're not in your building, then find the people around you that are. You know, is it family members? Is it your PLN? Is it your bunka group on Wednesday nights? I mean, I don't know, but you know, who are those people? And surround yourself with those people, but then pay it forward and fan the flames of others. And I think that's what we can do when we see these disengaged teachers. Let's do what we can to try to empathize with them and then connect and fan those flames of them as well.
Holly, I think you said so many important things that I love. First of all, I totally agree with you. The Twitter world saved my career 1,000%, because I couldn't leave teaching, but I was not happy. And I would have continued down the road that I was on had I not met the educators I did on Twitter. So agree with you 1,000%. I think what else, something you said that was really important is a lot of people want to say, you know, well, if administration would do blank, or if our climate and culture was like blank. When it comes down to it, nobody can make you happy in your career but you. So, you know, yes, there are pieces that need to be in place to support and not create the atmosphere for disengagement. We still need to have a climate, and you know, a positive climate and a strong culture. But who's responsible for that? We all are. We're all responsible for the climate and culture in our buildings. You know, we need to have effective leadership that supports us. We need to have the right mindset. And that's kind of where the hierarchy came from, was just like, what pieces can we put in place in order to really support teachers the best that we can? But ultimately, as you climb up the hierarchy, it is more individualized. Like, you have to take responsibility for those things and change it. I didn't have, you know, I had an effective leader that I worked under as far as my technology director when I switched things around. But the building administration, you know, it depended upon the building, where they were with their climate and culture. Those types of things were not bringing me back. It needed to be me. And I think that's a really important point to start with. And I'm so happy for you that you took that leap, and, you know, leap of faith, my goodness, in leaving, you know, to find your why. That's incredible. All right. Does anybody else have anything on question 4? So many great comments. All right. I'll go to question 5 then. So, I have often said that I believe teachers disengage for a few reasons. Personal adversity, so that was kind of what Kenny was saying, like maybe they're having financial hardship, maybe they just had a new baby and are not sleeping at night and things like that. They've got other things to pay attention to. Maybe it's a professional adversity, you know, trying something new and being reprimanded for risk-taking would be an example of that. And then burnout, which again, you know, like Leah said, can happen in any profession. It's not specific to teachers. And then also the secondary traumatic stress, which I talk a little bit about in the Fire Within, where anybody who is working with a student or even another teacher who talks about trauma, a traumatic experience, and or exhibits trauma behaviors can actually develop the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, even if they've never gone through a trauma themselves. And so that actually can be another thing that engages teachers. So what can we do to be more proactive to catch disengagement for both ourselves and our colleagues before it even happens? So on one half, we're trying to kind of pick people up and support them in order to get them re-engaged. But how can we stop it from happening in the first place?
I think that to help be more proactive, just like with our students, you know, the first couple of days of school, we do those get to know you kinds of activities. And as adults, and I'll be the first to admit, I hate icebreakers. I think they're a little bit cheesy. But we need to get to know the people that we're working with, because we're not, although we go into our rooms and we close our doors, we're not on islands in the building. We're all working towards the same goal. We're all running towards the same race. So at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, whenever you see the issue of disengagement starting to fester, you need to stop and take time to get to know your teachers. If you genuinely know your teachers, just like we expect our teachers to know their students, then you may, catch wind of somebody's having financial trouble, somebody's having troubles with their kids. Teachers love to gossip in the faculty dining room. We know that. One person may know that somebody else is going through a difficult time. They don't have to disclose what that difficult time is, but they can just say, hey, we need to be there to support our colleague. If it means, helping with lesson planning, grading papers or whatever, or just kind of acting as a buffer, because sometimes we get mandates from the district office that are just a little overwhelming. We need to be there for each other. And if we know each other and we have ongoing relationships where we're talking to one another about the good, the bad, the ugly, all kinds of things, then we can and I don't think we can prevent every kind of burnout, but we have to build relationships with one another. I'm the kind of person, if I know that you genuinely care about me, I'm going to talk to you. But if I think that you're just, hey, how you doing, whatever, I'm not going to share anything. So when I'm having a difficult time, you're not going to be the person that I come to. So I think that we need to get to know one another and be there to support one another. And if you see a colleague having a hard time, invite them to the football game on Friday night. There's nothing like sitting together with everybody at your school cheering on your team. And you could have the worst team, but there's that sense of camaraderie. We're rooting for the same cause. And it's not academically, it's a social environment. The parents are there, the grandparents are there, the friends, the students, everybody's there. And it's a time to relax and come together as one. So those are some of the things that I think that we can do to help each other. And it starts probably more so outside the classroom than inside the classroom, because outside is where we're shaped as people, and that's what we bring into the classroom.
Yeah, I agree with you, Leslie. It makes me think of the mentor program that we do at our school. We mentor the first 3 years of teaching, but I really feel like that's a little bit backwards, because this is my 9th year, and I feel like every single year is a new year. It's my first year teaching. Every single year I have a new set of kids. I feel like I'll never be that veteran teacher, in the sense of our curriculum's always changing. Our standards are always changing. You're changing grade levels. So I feel like it would be up to our administrators, and even part on us, to connect with teachers and to build relationships. I feel like I should have a mentor or some sort of buddy system, no matter what year of teaching I'm in. If I'm moving buildings, if I'm moving grade levels, I feel like we get lost into, oh, you've been teaching forever, so you know what you're doing. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that I know what I'm doing this moment. So having that relationship, or building that connection with other people in our school, having things like your social committee or sunshine committee, like you were talking about, Leslie, outside of school events. That's really important. Now, you're going to get a lot of those disengaged teachers that won't show up to them. So trying to do small things within the school day, something in their mailbox, leaving them a sticky note, doing classroom visits that's not like you're not evaluating them. I feel like those kind of things that we do with new teachers, as a mentor, I feel like everyone can benefit from, and that would really help that disengaged teacher. I love the idea of the high schoolers coming early and cheering us in. That would be so amazing. But a smile to someone that's not smiling really goes a long way. They're super contagious. So I think just we need to be there with our colleagues. And Mandy, what you said about not believing that they should leave the classroom, I 100% agree with that. I feel like other teachers around the building will say, oh, they just need to leave the profession already. Or like, oh, they're counting down 3 more years until retirement. Why don't they just go? That's not the answer. If those people took all that time and energy to talk about how much they should leave into writing them a quick note or stopping by or talking to them about their day, it would probably get a lot better for them.
Casey, you're so right. That 9 years in, I'm 13 years in, and some days I still feel like I have no idea. I think it really is a mentorship, a partnership, but I think you have to really intentionally seek those out. A couple of weeks ago, I had a teacher come into my office and sit down and just sit and cry. And for like 15 minutes, some talking, mostly just crying, and then stopped and went, I think I'm okay now. And got up and got it together and left. And I think sometimes we all just need to feel like somebody cares, you know, and just like what you were saying, Leslie, when I know somebody really genuinely cares about me, then I'm going to go and talk to them and share a little piece of like, I feel like I'm going crazy right now. I just need somebody to listen to me for a minute, and then I can re-engage and I'm going to be okay. But I think that's so much of what makes us disengage, is that we just feel alone. And teaching can be such a lonely profession, because it's sometimes just, it's you against 30 or 40, you know, and you're kind of on your own, and it can be lonely. But I think when you really intentionally develop partnerships with others, that helps you re-engage.
Kind of thinking about that aspect of vulnerable co-reflection with someone, you know, where you talk about the struggles you're having and they're like, oh, wow, you have struggles, you know, even if you're not the person suffering, that immediately in that element, you're showing that you're thinking about those things. And I feel like for all of us, we need to take more personal time for ourselves. Teachers are teachers in and out of school, but we've also got to take time to be people. And that's really hard for us. So, you know, connecting with your friends, meditating, exercising, I try to make sure I do those things. It's really hard to do those, but I also talk about how I'm trying to do those things with teachers I'm working with, you know. And, you know, what will happen is sometimes we'll send each other a guided meditation, or a health article we read about, you know, managing stress or something like that. And those things go a long way in making people feel like you do care, kind of like Leslie was saying earlier, you know, and also bonding together. So oftentimes people enjoy their workplaces better if they feel connected to the people they work with.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend Jared Borman, he wrote the book Professionally Driven. He often talks about that sense of belongingness, you know, like what creates that and how important it is. And I think that one of the things that does that is you're telling your stories, right? Because I think with social media, what happens, even it doesn't really matter if you're on Facebook or not, on Twitter or not. If you're on Facebook, you will still have those teachers who, you know, in the true spirit of social media, always put out just the positive things, right? And so you're like, oh, why am I not like them? Why am I not doing that awesome thing? And I could barely wake up for school yesterday, and they went running before they went there, you know, like they're doing all these amazing things. And you start to compare yourself, and it starts to kind of make you feel bad. And when it comes down to it, we all have our struggles every single day that we are dealing with when we go to work. And that vulnerability, those kinds of, you know, that vulnerability is so important. I had said to one of our support staff a few weeks ago, well, it would have been the end of the school year now, so longer than that. I said to her something about, oh, my anxiety is just through the roof today. And she's like, you have anxiety? And I said, yeah, and I've been having a panic attack for about the last hour. I'm exhausted. And so we started talking about that, and you know, you could tell she was like, well, you know, you always seem to have it together. And I'm like, that is just fake. That's so fake sometimes, that, you know, sometimes no, my anxiety is through the roof and I'm really struggling. And from that, we formed a stronger bond. And it's those types of vulnerable conversations, that, you know, that will kind of form that bonding element. And I do think that that's so important. Anything else for the good of the cause? No? Okay, Sarah, I think I'm going to kick it back to you. Thank you, everybody. That was a great conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Mandy. And thank you to everyone on panel. This conversation was just amazing. Thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube Live as well. Loving the comments that are coming through. So shout out to everybody who's checking this out and also tweeting with us. This is that fire. So really, really excited to put this back out as a podcast, hopefully sooner rather than later, as well as to share it on Facebook. So definitely wanted to thank each of you for your contributions tonight. Great food for thought and a great way to transition us back into the school year. So before we go, just want to give some quick shout outs. So first to our EduMatch authors. So first and foremost to Mandy, who moderated the panel. So check out her upcoming book, which will be released on November 26th. So definitely looking forward to that. And also check out The Fire Within, which is already out right now. Also, huge shout out to Dean Gainey for Journey to the YNU, to Brian Costello for The Teacher's Journey, to Dr. Sam Fetchich. Check her out at the top of the hour, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be chatting with her, and she's going to be telling you about EduMagic. And also on the 23rd of October, we will be releasing the EduMatch Maker book. So very excited about that, just in the final stretches of it. And last but not least, well, we have several more coming out, but the last one for 2018 will be EduSnap 18. So if anyone is still interested, check out books.edumatch.org/EduSnap interest form. If you'd like to submit a chapter, chapters are due by August 31st. So if you fill out that form, you will get an agreement sent over to you, as well as a Google Classroom code. So just sign and send back the agreement, add yourself to the Google Classroom, and you will find the template. So definitely looking forward to more amazing conversation. So check us out, 7 p.m. Eastern. We have Dr. Sam Fetchich on to talk about EduMagic. And next week, we are going to have another back-to-back episode, 6 p.m. We're going to be talking about virtual learning for educational leaders, moderated by Tara Gilboa. And at 7 p.m., we are going to have EduMatch authors on. So you're going to see Mandy again, as well as Sam again, as well as Dean, Brian, and several other authors who have just signed on with us. So really excited about that. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week and keep it locked. Same bad time, same bad channel. All right, bye, guys.